There it says live plus two. Two people are watching.
Okay.
So there you are.
Whatever.
We're sitting by the fire. It's 27 degrees outside. We're in the mountains in North Georgia. Thank you for joining us. I've got a couple of stories to tell you and some recommendations to make. And if you have questions, observances, criticisms, whatever the case might be, then by all means, let us hear from you.
Give people time to gather up.
I am. Everybody gather up. It's a pleasure for us to be doing this together, and I look at it as a privilege to be able for us to visit like this from time to time, live. And these videos will be aired on YouTube, and heavens knows where else. O'Neill is everywhere, it appears. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But nevertheless, we have some things to talk about today. I would urge you, I would recommend to you, here it is. I would recommend to you that you consider the purchase of O'Neill Outside. You can get it purchase it at Amazon and at O'Neill Outside website, o'neilloutside.com. And if you order it there, then I will autograph it for you and write something, dedication, I think it's called, something like this. It's just a book about stories. It's not a how-to book. It's a book about, as is described, people and places along the way. Been doing this quite a while, so if you're not tired of it, I'm not either. Let's start out with a story. I want to tell you a story. There was a young man, a little boy, really. His name was Luther. And he was the oldest of 5 children. And he was orphaned when he and his brothers and sisters, he was 10 years old, and he was the oldest of 5 children. And he was sent to live, he was born in a little town called Tiger, Georgia. And he was sent to live with relatives. They were all kind of parceled out to the relatives. And he was sent to live with a fellow who was maybe the least desirable. I don't know. But he was a moonshiner. And he had a fellow that worked for him, a black guy. He was supposedly, as the story goes, he was 6 feet 11 inches tall. And it was kind of fun because they said they bought his shoes once a year from Sears and Roebuck. And he wore a size 19 shoe. The story's been embellished over the years. But here's Luther, and he gets farmed out, and he lives with his uncle for 3 years. Never goes to school, and he ran away when he was 13 after 3 years. And I understand that when he left that day, icicles were hanging off his hat, and he had the clothes on his back and a few changes of clothes in the pockets of his coat. He found a job at a lumber yard. He was helping clear trees in the mountains of North Georgia. They were building a railroad there. And he worked there from 13 until 16. And he was in a little town of Wiley, I believe, is the little town there. And he saw a young blonde girl in a play yard, in the grammar school play yard. She was 15 years old. And he asked a companion, "Who is that little girl there?" And he was told that her name was Amanda Smith. And but he said, "You need to be careful because that's Fagin Smith's daughter." Now that's as far as that got. Fagin, whoever that was. And Luther said, "Well, that's the girl I'm going to marry." And he did. A year later, they had 7 children, and he worked there on the railroad from the time he was 16 till the railroad, the tracks was finished. He was helping nail the spikes into place, and he got to work with Georgia Power. And he moved on and became the locomotive driver, a steam locomotive and he was the engineer there, and he worked at Georgia Power until he was 65. He had seven. He and Amanda had 7 children. He worked there until he was 65 years old, and he retired with a gold watch and a rod and reel. And I used that rod and reel because that was my grandfather, and his second daughter was my mother. And that, permit me, is the kind of story that's detailed in O'Neill Outside. If you like to read that stuff, this is a book you should consider. You can get it at o'neilloutside.com. Okay.
So is that the story that you promised?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, it should be.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
enough.
that's a special
Yeah,
story.
That's enough.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
I know that you all...
Gail is with me. She translates your messages.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
And I'm out of Facebook jail now, so which is a
Yay!
good thing. And I still don't know why I was ever in there, but that's another story. I know we always referred to your grandmother as Memo. What
Yeah.
did Luther call her? Did he call her Mandy or Amanda? Do
I
you
don't
recall?
I don't know. I don't know what my father called her.
Okay. I do know that there are 2. There's a granddaughter named after her. Her name is Mandy Wood. And there is a great-granddaughter named after her. And we call her Amy. And that is our daughter.
Yes.
But her name is Amanda.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a Depression era marriage and story of people hard working. And after my father was killed when I was 6 weeks old, my mother and I lived with them in East Point, Georgia. I guess what was East Point? Would that be East Point?
I don't know. Anyway,
West Georgia.
Yeah.
That's where we lived, West Georgia. Out West Atlanta, that was it. We'd call it that. And I remember watching him walk to work and to walk to catch the bus. And he wore a black hat, with a real tall black hat with a lunchbox. And I can remember seeing him leave. And my mother remarried when I was 3 to a wonderful man who raised me, and he was a B-29 radio operator on a B-29 and had 25 missions over Japan. And I had a wonderful life. I sure did. Okay, enough about me. Anything going on?
He was your father.
Yes.
In every way except blood.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and that's the way you always felt about him, and that's the
Sure.
way our grandchildren feel
Sure.
about them, and our children. That was grandmother and papa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, back to maybe more constructive thought here. It's wintertime. Like I said, it's 27 degrees outside. It's cold, snow on the ground here in North Georgia. Well, what should you do now with your children or grandchildren to get them involved in the outdoors? It sure is cold outside. What should you be doing?
27 degrees right now.
Yeah, 27.
Outside.
What should you be doing? Well, you can go hunt sheds. It's about that time all over the southeast, with the exception of Alabama, and we're not going to get into why Alabama rut is so late. We'll do that at another time. We've referred to it on many occasions. But shed hunt, that familiarizes yourself and your children. You're together that day. It's not Little League. It's not high school football. It's not cheerleading. It's the two of you together. And don't forget, as I say to you every week, don't forget about the little kid down the street whose dad is not an outdoorsman, or his dad doesn't live at home. Invite him to come along also. I know that my father, stepfather, but he never was, my father was not an outdoorsman. I can remember we hunted together maybe 2 times. But I had a friend His name is Jeff Hobbins, and Jeff's dad was a fisherman. And they used to invite me to go fishing with them at Lake Lanier during high school years. I remember, I can remember when I got the traditional knee injury and was out of football after my junior year, that they provided a chair for me to sit in the boat. Did you ever know that? No, they had a little lawn chair. A lawn chair, and I sat in the boat because I couldn't stand up.
I think I just moved your camera. I'm
No,
sorry.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's okay.
Because I dropped my stylus.
Yeah.
I'm
All right. Okay.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, I had a chair in Hobbins Rick's dad's boat.
Really?
Yeah, they had a little chair.
For you to sit in
Uh-huh.
after your.
Well, I couldn't stand up.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. He's a good guy, and next week I promise I'll tell you the story of how Jeff Hobbins, his name is Jeffrey Merrick, and he went through high school as Rick Hobbins, and how as 13, 14, and 15-year-olds, how we made our summer employment. It's an interesting story, and it's in the book.
I was going to say, yes, it's in the book. There you go.
Okay, you have questions, criticisms, whatever the case might be. I'm telling you, you still need to go outside. You need to take your kids outside. Go shed hunting. Go squirrel hunting. Do no hunting. Just go outside. And here's a little trick. If it's the two of you, you sit still. Now, right now, this gray squirrels across the country, the gray squirrel, he's mating now. Okay, he's like a coyote and a wolf. He mates in the wintertime. So if you go there, they're running around all over the trees and everything. But if you make noise, they will flatten themselves out on the side of the tree. And if you walk around the tree, they'll flatten themselves out around the tree. So what you need to do is one of you sit still on one side of the tree and the other one walk around it. And it will flush that squirrel out to where your son or daughter can see it. Tactics even for squirrel hunting. Quite frankly, to me, squirrel hunting's ever more enjoyable than deer hunting. Deer hunting is a bore. It's what you make of it, but it's basically a bore.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
While we're on the subject of deer.
Okay.
Okay, we had, we share our mountain with Big Canoe, Bent Tree, Burnt Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all one,
Yeah.
separate but yet one community. There was a question today on
Mm-hmm.
one of those about piebald deer.
Okay.
And someone said that it was they referred to it as a Virginia whitetail,
Yes.
or I don't know. It was they're very confused anyway. So explain to us about piebald and what they are, and what type of deer are in Georgia.
Okay. In Georgia, you've got one deer. It's whitetail deer. Now, the Department of Natural Resources,
Okay, all over Georgia.
all over Georgia, it's nothing but whitetail deer.
Even if it's South Georgia at the Georgia-Florida line.
Correct. In Florida, is nothing other than the key deer way down in the Florida Keys. You have a key deer. Otherwise, it's whitetail there too. It's whitetail in the Carolinas. It's whitetail in Tennessee, Kentucky. There's a few mule deer running around in there, and the whitetails also in Alabama. Now, the question was, what kind of deer are in Georgia? Well, there's lots of different species, but they're all whitetails because it was a long 50, 60, 70 years ago that the Department of Natural Resources in Georgia funded the transplantation of deer into Georgia because they were almost gone. They got them from Tennessee and the Carolinas, and they got them from Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio, and that's why in Georgia it's a big mix of deer. Okay, but they're all whitetails. And one of the questions on the Facebook page there from a local community was if any of them were piebald. What was a piebald? Well, a piebald deer is just white spots. Part of him is the natural brown, and part of him is white. He's a genetic mutation, okay? And I don't think he passes that along. It would be like a human that is an albino. And there are albino deer. There are albino whitetails. I know my fishing buddy, Henry Cowan, took a photo and sent it to me last week of a solid white solid white albino whitetail at Lake Lanier.
Yeah.
Solid white. So I would not shoot that deer. I would rather have he or she in the woods as a conversation
Yes.
piece.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't shoot that deer.
No.
Because if I shoot a deer, it's for consumption. It's for the meat. It's for the sausage. It's for the hamburgers. It's for the hide. I don't trophy hunt any longer because I've got the biggest deer. I shot the biggest deer I ever saw, and that was in Oklahoma, and that was about 10 years ago, and he's right up there.
Yeah.
But you can't see him. Okay. All
He
right.
has on
Anything
a Trump
else?
hat.
Pardon me?
He has on a Trump hat.
Yeah, he's
I
got.
did.
I put a Trump hat on him. He didn't win, but he's a good one. I tell you that. Okay, he won as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead.
Okay.
You have anything?
Do we have any piebald on Sassafras Mountain?
Don't know.
Possibly.
It's absolutely. You could have piebald deer in anywhere's whitetail. I don't know if they're piebald mule deer, but likely so. But I don't. That's a mutation. That's not repeated over and over again. That's not a species. So, anything else, darling?
Well, someone asked they want Travis to move back to Georgia.
Oh.
So do we, but it's not going to happen.
The reference is Travis Johnson. He's our grandson, and he is a cattleman, whitetail, turkey, hog, coyote hunter, guide. And he lives in Oklahoma, about a stone's throw from the Panhandle border of Texas. And he owns some property there and some cattle. And he is a cattleman and deer guide. And I'd love for him to come back to Georgia. But my conversations with him yield the probable guess is he's not ever coming back to Georgia. He's going to be a cattleman in Texas. And he's he's going to be bidding on a few hundred acres.
Yeah.
Yeah, not long.
That's the secret, though.
Oh, I'm not going to tell that.
Someone said they did see a piebald in Big Canoe.
Oh, good.
And you very likely did.
Absolutely.
Because they're everywhere. They're
they
just
can-
rare.
That's right. The white-tailed deer, a wild white-tailed deer, its lifespan is probably no more than 8 years. You see sometimes traveling hunting shows and so forth that a deer may be lived to be 12, 13, 15 years old, but not in the wild. Usually 8 years is about it. So, another comment about there was some speculation on the internet today. Someone wrote to Gail that said that they live in the Big Canoe, an upscale community here in the North Georgia mountains, and that they understood that the developer of that place brought in some white-tailed deer from Texas in the 1940s or 50s or 60s.
No, they didn't give a time.
Okay.
No, they
Long
just
time
said
ago that they
in order
brought
to get people to be able to see wildlife when they came to look for
I
a
see.
lot. Okay.
to upscale the neighborhood. It's wild. Look, we even have white-tailed deer, and this developer brought in the deer. No, he didn't. Only the Department of Natural Resources can do that. You cannot own deer. You can in Texas. You cannot own deer in Georgia. The deer belong to Georgia. The deer belongs to the state. That's why they can set the rules about how you can harvest them or not harvest, or how often you can harvest and when is the season. You don't own the deer. The state does. See? And that's the best way. In Texas, oh my goodness, yes, you can own deer. I have a friend. I haven't been hunting at his place in, 6 or 8 years. but he's in the oil business, and he had, I think he had a high fence, and I hunted there, and I think he had 1,500 acres under a high fence. And I had a handicapped young man, and we brought him in so he could hunt, okay, and he was going to get a big deer. And I shot a deer, but he was just average at best. But I did get to see some of the deer that he owned, that friend in the oil business, that he had purchased from a Texas breeder. And the biggest one I saw, I told him, I described to him the deer I saw, and he said that that deer would score a 265. And if I pulled the trigger on that deer, it would cost me $20,000. I never gave it a thought. I never considered it. There you are. Anything?
No.
Okay.
I mean, people are making comments, but they're not making any. They're not giving you any questions.
Okay. Well, in any case, let's see.
Let's see.
Yes.
I have seen many albino black-male deer. Is that a
Blacktail.
okay?
Black-tailed deer.
Okay, black-male.
A
Okay.
black-tailed deer is in the northwest corner of North America, maybe into Canada, but I don't think so. But it's mostly western Idaho, Washington, and Oregon, and he's a blacktail deer. He's a much smaller deer than the whitetail, and then the biggest deer is a mule deer. It's strange, not strange. It's a fact, and I can explain why. All antlered animals are larger body-wise, and therefore probably their racks, the farther they get from the equator. That's why in South Florida, in the Keys, the key deer weighs about 40 pounds. He's like a German Shepherd, maybe not even that big. But as you get bigger, farther and farther and farther north, up into Wisconsin and in Michigan and then into Canada and all the way up to almost the Arctic Circle, the white-tailed deer get bigger and bigger and bigger. I was fortunate enough about 10 years ago to go to Canada, Saskatchewan, almost to the tree line to hunt deer. And I stayed there 5 days. The high temperature while I was there was 1. The low temperature was 20 below. And my cameraman and I, his name's Scotty, and he's a tough guy. We drove a four-wheeler for 22 miles every morning to get to the stand after the owner took us in there once. There was a trail. I mean, you had to go over ice. You had to go over ponds to get there. But it was 22 miles, and they weren't. I've heard about heated stands in Texas. No, there were no heated stands, not where we were. It was a fold-out with open sides and the snow. They had to rake the snow off, and our lunch was frozen by 8 o'clock in the morning. And there you stay in the stand all day. You don't go in for lunch. No, you stay in the stand all day. It's a short day. The day's only like 10 hours. So you stay in the stand and you're cold all day. We had these big chemical kidney warmers, that you can put on your back. But we put those on the sides of the camera so the camera wouldn't freeze.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cold. I was ready to go home, okay?
Is that when you red Ayn Rand?
No, that was another trip. That's on another trip to Canada that I didn't hardly see a deer. I got tickled. Someone else arranged the trip, and I didn't do any more. I didn't let anyone else arrange trips that I didn't trust 100%. But someone else arranged this trip, and I didn't have anything to do with it. And it was on an Indian reservation. So, oh boy, Indian land. And the nice fella, Indian, big guy, and he took us out to our stand. And I anticipated, staying in a tree, or some stands on a tree. And when we got there, he said, here's your stand, He spoke English. Here's your stand. He spoke Canadian. And our stand was an 8 foot 4x4 lying there on the snow.
Did your butt get cold?
And that's where, because I didn't have anything else to do, that's where I read Ayn Rand's, what's the name of the book? I'm sorry. Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
It took me quite a few trips into her before I understood her speech patterns. But I did read it, and I've read it again, and I recommend reading to you. Her name is spelled A-Y-N, pronounced Ayn Rand, R-A-N-D. Atlas Shrugged. Don't live your life without reading that book. You'll understand. Yes.
Someone, I'm trying to find it again. They said, is it about time to shoot crappie from a dock? Is that a...
well, he's talking about shooting under the docks. You use a jig and bow the rod. You're watching me, aren't you?
No. Okay.
You pull
Yes.
the line and bow the rod like you shoot up underneath the docks.
Yes.
With in the rod, because you're right on the surface. You can't cast under there, so you shoot the docks. Yes, it is. When the water temperature at Lanier and lakes that hold black and white crappie all over the South, all over the country, when the water temperature gets to be 55 and below, then the docks with brush underneath them, standing trees, Christmas trees, and the whole deal that we talked about before about putting hay bales under there, that's where the crappie live. Well, they also live in the trees out in the lake too. But see, it's shady under the dock. It's dark, and the trees are there, and it's deep, like 40 feet deep. And you can just catch them by the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And a great place to take a child, because you don't have to go anywhere in a boat. Just walk out on the dock and drop a jig down. Anchor it with a road runner and some, what are those hooks called? True turn hooks that you put on the side. I'll remember it later. Oh, is it half an hour already?
Already? So it's almost
Oh,
time.
man.
Okay.
You're just getting started.
I understand. Well, you can go a few more
right.
minutes
All right.
if you want to. After all.
Can you turn that off?
Well, I probably can.
Okay.
Eventually. Hold on. I want you to know that the princess is watching.
Oh,
you,
my
there
goodness.
There you go. And is there an issue with muzzle loaders in sub-zero temperatures, such as what you were just talking about?
Not to me. No, I've hunted with a muzzle loader. When I was in Canada and it was 20 degrees below zero, I was using a CVA muzzle loader. I've never had a problem. Now, if it's wet and you're going to be in the stand all day or exposed to rain all day long, get a plastic glove, like, protective gloves, and cut off one of the fingers. You'll have plenty of them. There should be 5 on each glove. And you put that over the muzzle, and it'll keep the muzzle dry.
What's the best way to communicate with you?
Best way to communicate is website, I guess.
Or call?
But you can call me, O'Neill. I'm the
Send
only
the phone
one.
book.
Hmm?
Send the phone book.
Yeah, I'm the only. Well, I used to say I'm the only O'Neill Williams in the book, but we had some extensive visits. It's funny. Can I tell the story?
Certainly.
Okay. Yale had some health issues about 20 years ago.
I had breast cancer.
She had breast
27
cancer.
years ago.
27
Yes.
years ago. And so we got to go to Emory University Breast Cancer Center. What's it called?
Winship Clinic.
Winship Clinic. And we went there often over a long period of time. And I used to tell people I'm the only O'Neill Williams in the book. So, I mean, there you are. And so we walk into the office there, and the reception desk, And there's a name plaque there, and it says O'Neal Williams. And I said, somebody's playing a joke, you know. Who did this? Lady says, what are you talking about? I said, well, O'Neal Williams. Is a guy named O'Neal Williams here? She said, yes, he's the manager of this department. I'd like to meet him if you have a chance. My name is O'Neal Williams, and I've never seen another one of those. So I'd like to meet the man. Gracious, charming. He walks out, we meet each other, and we take photos. Of course, he's about a 6'2" black guy, so you can tell us apart.
I thought y'all looked just alike.
Yeah, that's right. The black guy's on the right. His
What?
name is O'Neal Williams. Does he spell it the same way? I don't
He
remember.
only spells it with one L.
Oneil instead of double L's.
Yeah.
But his name was O'Neal Williams, and is he still there? We don't know, do we?
I'm not sure.
Well, anyway,
I'm
nice
not sure.
guy.
Yeah.
Okay, with a name like that, you have to be nice.
Yeah. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie. I'll see you guys later. Oh, buy the book. And Henry, baseball nickname, Oil Can. Who's that?